Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. I was married to Ethan for 50 years. We lived as a seemingly harmonious couple, surrounded by children and grandchildren. After my death, he gave me a grand funeral, and even took his own life to follow me. Everyone praised our marriage as a perfect match, but only I knew the truth. On his deathbed, Ethan looked at me with utter disgust and said, "If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have wasted so many years with Lily. If there's a next life, I will never marry you again." When I opened my eyes, I found myself back at 22. This time, I fulfilled his wish. I was suffocated to death by Ethan's own hands. His bloodshot eyes stared at me as he stepped into the hospital room, yanked off my oxygen tube, and pressed his hands tightly over my mouth and nose. I instinctively struggled for a moment, but then my hands fell still. I was 72 years old in this lifetime, plagued by illness. Dying at the hands of the man I once loved didn't seem like such a bad ending. Yet just before I took my final breath, I heard Ethan's voice dripping with hatred. "It's all your fault. Why didn't you just die sooner? If you hadn't forced me to marry you, I wouldn't have wasted all those years with Lily. Now she's lived an unfortunate life and met a miserable end. You're coming with me to the grave. If there's a next life, I will never marry a wretched woman like you, Lily Carter." I snapped my eyes open in shock. Lily was my cousin, fostered in our home. Ethan never even gave me a chance to ask, but before I could process anything, my life was already over. As a spirit, I hovered above, watching Ethan handle my funeral. I saw my children rushing back from different cities, kneeling before my coffin, crying their hearts out. On the 7th day, Ethan slit his wrists in the bathroom and bled to death. He left behind only one sentence: "My one true love is gone. I do not wish to remain in this world." My daughter wailed, "Dad, you followed Mom. What about us? What do we do now?" Floating in the air, I could only laugh bitterly. 50 years together. Yet even my own children believed Ethan had loved me. Only I knew his heart had always belonged to Lily. 50 years as his wife, and I had never once stepped into his heart. The true love he spoke of was never me. It was my sister, Lily Carter. A single tear fell from my eye as I clutched my chest in agony. When I lifted my head again, I saw Ethan at 22, staring at me with sheer loathing. "Sophia, I will never like you. Get that through your head." I faltered for a moment, looking at his hateful expression, then at the letter clenched in my hands. I suddenly realized I had been reborn. I had returned to the day I confessed my love to Ethan. A crowd had gathered, waiting to witness the scene unfold. Someone teased Ethan. "Just say yes already. Yes, say yes." Hearing that, the disgust in Ethan's eyes deepened. I exhaled slowly. A sense of relief washed over me. Thankfully, I hadn't married him. There was still time. I calmly said, "I'm sorry about before. I won't bother you again." The entire crowd fell silent. Ethan looked momentarily stunned. Without hesitation, I turned and walked away, step by step, leaving them behind. From behind me, voices whispered, "Is she serious? Did Sophie really give up on Ethan?" Ethan was the city's elite, and in my past life, I had fallen for him at first sight. I chased after him tirelessly for 2 years until one day he suddenly agreed to marry me. I had cried with joy, thinking that my persistence had finally won him over, that he had finally been moved by my sincerity. But in truth, the only reason he agreed was because he had just learned that Lily was getting married. The love of his life was marrying someone else, and so he carelessly married me. After our wedding, Ethan was distant, but there was nothing I could fault him for. He handed over his salary, lived a routine life between home and work, never smoked or drank, and had no bad habits. His only hobby was reading. Friends around us envied me, saying I had found a devoted and responsible husband. With 2 sons and a daughter, our life seemed happy and fulfilling. I used to believe that too until the moment before my death when I saw the deep resentment Ethan had suppressed for years. Only then did I realize he had never loved me, not even once. Decades of effort, sacrifice, and devotion turned into nothing more than a cruel joke. The love I had been so proud of was nothing but an illusion, a fantasy that existed only in my own mind. What was even more pathetic was that even after my death, his so-called devotion was a lie. He hadn't taken his own life out of grief. He had merely used me as a cover for a love that had never been known to the world. If Ethan loved Lily so much, then in this life, I would grant him his wish. When I returned home, Lily hurried over to me, grabbing my arm. She asked excitedly, "So my idea was great, wasn't it? Ethan must have said yes, right?" I lifted my gaze and looked at her in silence for a long while. I didn't speak. Lily was about my age. In my past life, I had treated her as a close friend, the only person I confided in about my feelings for Ethan. But it hadn't been long before the entire village knew about my infatuation. The moment I stepped outside, people whispered behind my back, calling me shameless. Once, I got into a heated argument with some of them and ran home in tears. Lily patted my back to console me. "Sophie, they're just old-fashioned and stuck in the past. Don't listen to them. In the city, people believe in free love. If you like someone, you have to be brave and go after them. Facing setbacks is nothing." I trusted her. I pursued Ethan even more relentlessly, bringing him food, scarves, gloves. Even confessing my feelings to him in public had been Lily's idea. She kept encouraging me to be bold in my love, but she never told me that Ethan despised such direct, fervent advances. What she also never told me was that somewhere along the way, she had wormed her way into Ethan's heart right under my nose. The two of them had secretly grown close, developing feelings for each other, and because of her, I had wasted a lifetime foolishly chasing after someone who never wanted me. Thinking about all of this, my eyes burned with emotion. Lily, seemingly nervous under my stare, shook my hand and asked again, "Did Ethan agree?" "No." Lily let out a nearly imperceptible sigh of relief. The corners of her lips twitched slightly as if she wanted to smile, but she quickly suppressed it and furrowed her brows in faint concern. "What? How could he be like that? But it's okay. Ethan is tall, handsome, and from a good family. Sophie, you're from the countryside, you don't have much education, and you're not exactly the prettiest. If you want to win him over, you'll have to try harder. That candy you bought last time, he seemed to like it. Why don't you buy some more tomorrow to make him happy?" It was only after I got married that I realized Ethan never liked that candy. Everything I had ever given him had ended up in Lily's hands. Nearly every gift I had given Ethan over the years had ultimately gone to her. She had spent 2 years using Ethan as an excuse to take things from me. Realizing this, I shook off her hand and said flatly, "No need, Lily. I've decided not to like Ethan anymore." Her voice instantly rose in panic. "What? You're giving up on him? How can you do that? Love isn't something you just abandon halfway. You have to be persistent. Trust me, if you keep going, Ethan will eventually be moved by you. Maybe you just haven't been sincere enough. Where's your New Year's money? I saw city folks wearing designer scarves. Why don't you buy one for Ethan? That'll surely make him forgive you." Her reaction was intense, as if me giving up on Ethan was some kind of crime. When she finished speaking, I stared at her coldly and said, "I don't like him anymore, and that's that. You're my cousin. Why are you so eager to speak for him?" Lily instantly fell silent, pressing her lips together tightly. "I was just looking out for you. You don't appreciate my kindness," Lily huffed, crossing her arms. "Fine, don't come begging me for help when you want to chase after Ethan again." As she spoke, frustration crept into her voice. Then, with a stomp of her foot, she turned and ran off. In my past life, I would have chased after her, apologized, and tried to make amends, but this time I felt nothing. I had no intention of smoothing things over. I thought I wouldn't see Ethan again so soon, but to my surprise, he came to my house the very next day to propose to Lily. The moment the words left his mouth, my parents' eyes widened in shock. Lily, on the other hand, turned red, her eyes flickering with excitement as she kept sneaking glances at Ethan. Her voice trembled with disbelief. "Marry me, Ethan? You really want to marry me, not Sophie?" Ethan nodded firmly, his gaze filled with unwavering devotion as he looked at Lily. "Yes, I want to marry you, Lily. You are the only one in my heart. Besides you, I want no one else." Then, as if suddenly remembering my existence, Ethan shot me a cold glance. His eyes carried resentment, disdain. In that instant, I knew he had returned. Just yesterday, Ethan had been brash and impatient, but his gaze had been clear. Today he was noticeably more composed, more calculating. Hearing his sudden proposal, my mother clenched her fists, anger simmering beneath her voice. When did you and Lily get together? Why don't I know about this? Marriage is not a game. Sophie has loved you for 2 years, and now you say you want to be with Lily. Have you even considered her feelings? But Ethan cut her off sharply, his tone was cold. Why should I consider her? It was always one-sided. She never even asked me if I liked her, if I wanted any of this. He exhaled, his voice resolute. I made a mistake before, but I won't repeat it again. Mr. Carter, the person I want to marry is Lily. The person I love is Lily. One-sided. My chest tightened. I had spent 50 years as Ethan's wife, raised 2 children with him, and devoted my life to our home. Even if there was no love, I had given everything I had. And yet he dismissed it all as nothing more than a one-sided fantasy. You ungrateful brat. How dare you treat my daughter like this? I'll tear that filthy mouth of yours apart. My mother, fiery as ever, lunged forward in fury. I quickly grabbed her arm, stopping her. Mom, don't. He's not worth it. I held her close, keeping my voice calm. My father remained silent, smoking a cigarette until he finally exhaled and looked at Lily. Lily, do you want this? Joy was barely concealed on her face. Her cheeks were still flushed, her lips trembling with excitement. She nodded eagerly. Yes, I do. My father said no more. He turned to Ethan, his expression unreadable. You're in your 20s now. You lost your parents young, and before your father passed, he entrusted you to me. I raised you. But you've grown up now. I can't control you anymore. If you both agree, then do as you wish. With that, he waved his hand dismissively. Ethan's face lit up with joy. Without hesitation, he reached for Lily's hand, his voice soft and tender. Come, Lily. Lily didn't even hesitate. Without a second thought, she followed him. Just like that, she left, and she wouldn't be coming back so easily. I watched their figures disappear around the corner. My mother, seething, spat on the ground. Shameless, disgraceful little. Running off with a man without a proper engagement or marriage. Where's her dignity? She scoffed. He's right, you know. If Ethan came here to propose, the next step should be setting an engagement date and preparing for the wedding. Instead, she just ran off with him like some cheap woman with no self-respect. Doesn't she realize how important a woman's reputation is? Lily is digging her own grave. Ethan couldn't wait to bring Lily home as his wife. The day after she left my house, he invited the village chief to bear witness, and under the moonlight, they bowed to the heavens in an informal wedding ceremony. A few simple tables were set up in the courtyard for the guests. As Lily's family, we were obligated to attend. My parents wore sour expressions the entire time, busied herself fiddling with the tablecloth while my father sat in silence smoking. Only I had the patience to rest my chin on my hand and watch them exchange loving words. At that moment, Ethan was gazing at her with a depth of emotion, as if he had 1,000 words to say. Lily, I'm sorry for making you go through this. When we settle down, I'll give you a proper wedding, one where everyone will know that you are my wife. Tears streamed down Lily's face. She was so overwhelmed that she couldn't even speak, only nodding fervently. I felt nothing but boredom. My thoughts drifted back to my own wedding in my past life. It had been grand. My parents did everything they could to make it a dignified affair. The sun shone brightly on the day I married Ethan, and I wore a modern wedding gown, stepping into marriage with joy in my heart. But Ethan's face had been dark the entire time. Now, with nothing but a simple ceremony, he couldn't stop smiling. The warmth in his eyes was almost tangible. When I was with him, he was always cold and distant, sometimes even impatient. 50 years of marriage, and I could count on one hand the number of times he had looked at me with kindness. No matter how much I did for him, he never once praised me. So this was the difference between love and indifference. I let out a soft sigh. In the 7 days my soul had lingered after my death, I had seen Ethan retrieve a wooden box from his study. It was filled to the brim with letters. When I saw Lily's name at the bottom of each one, I finally understood. My perfect husband had been in secret correspondence with her for decades. Despite our marriage, they had written about life, their values, nature, everything. They had even gone on trips together. Every spring, Ethan had told me he had to leave for business, but in reality, he had been off traveling with Lily. Together, they had toured almost half the country, visiting every place she had ever dreamed of seeing. Meanwhile, I had always wanted to climb Yellow Mountain, but Ethan had always dismissed it with excuses. I never went. Even in death, I never got to go. As I came back to the present, I realized Ethan and Lily were making their rounds to offer a toast. Ethan's face darkened the moment he saw me, unwilling to spare me even a glance. Lily, on the other hand, was beaming with joy. "Sophie, what are you thinking about? I called your name so many times, but you didn't answer." She lifted her glass. "Come on, this one's for you. Thank you for so graciously stepping aside and letting me have Ethan." Ethan let out a scoff. "Why are you thanking her? You and I were always meant to be together." I clenched my fingers into a fist but still raised my glass and drank in one go. I had intended to simply get rid of her quickly, but she seemed determined to provoke me. "Sophie, now that you've accepted this toast, you have to promise me. Don't come looking for Ethan anymore," she said sweetly. "He's a married man now. I used to love him, but because of you." She bit her lower lip as if she had suffered. A wave of irritation surged within me. I never expected Lily to twist the truth so blatantly in front of everyone, making herself out to be the victim. I was the one who had loved Ethan first, yet now she was painting me as the villain who had come between them. The worst part was I wasn't quick-witted enough to argue back. The table buzzed with whispers. What's going on with these sisters? Didn't Sophie like Ethan first? So Lily liked him too? Well, look at them now. At that moment, my mother slammed the table. She stood in front of me, glaring coldly at the gossiping crowd. Soup and water spilled over onto the busybodies, but not a single person dared to complain. Without another word, my parents took me away, leaving behind the wreckage. On the way home, my mother muttered curses under her breath. "This is too much, that pretty-faced liar. I knew he was no good from the start. And that Lily, I told you not to bring her home, but did you listen? And now look, we raised her for nothing, only for her to bring us trouble. What a waste of all those years feeding her." She sighed, then wrapped an arm around my shoulders, her voice softening. "My poor Sophie, that scoundrel is nothing. Just give me a couple of days. I'll find you someone 10 times, no 100 times better." I held her hand gently and shook my head. "Mom, I'm not thinking about that right now. I heard that the National College entrance exam might return in 2 years. I want to take it." My mother froze in place, staring at me in disbelief, but my usually silent father reacted first. "The college entrance exam? You?" he asked, making sure he had heard correctly. I nodded yes without hesitation. My father said, "All right, you're our only daughter. You can do whatever you want." Half a month later, the county library received a new batch of study materials. I woke up early and walked for over an hour to get there. A large crowd had already gathered at the entrance, pushing and shoving. Ignoring everything else, I forced my way forward, only managing to grab a math textbook. The English materials were already gone. Disheartened, I was about to check another bookstore when a familiar voice called out, "Sophie, what are you doing here?" I turned to see Lily. Her eyes landed on the math book in my hands, and before I could react, she snatched it away. "How did you know Ethan was planning to take the college entrance exam? He needs this. Give it back." I tried to grab it, but she spun around and ran toward Ethan, handing him the book. Ethan glanced at me, slowly taking his time, seizing the moment. I rushed forward and snatched the book back, holding it tightly against my chest. "I fought hard to get this. If you need one, go find it yourself." Ethan stood frozen, his brows furrowing slightly. "It's not for me. Then why did you even bother buying it?" His condescending tone irritated me. My voice turned sharp. "Why does it matter to you? None of your business." Without another word, I turned and ran off, not bothering to listen to whatever he and Lily were discussing behind me. Lily hesitated before asking, "Ethan, do you think Sophie is planning to take the exam too?" Ethan scoffed, "Impossible. She can barely read. and she always complains about getting headaches whenever she studies. There's no way she'd take the entrance exam. She probably bought it for me and got upset because you were here. I'll talk to her when we get back to the village." After returning from town, I went straight to Shane's house and handed him the textbook. "Here, I just got this today. English books were too hard to find, so I'll get one next time. Did you finish your composition?" "Yeah, I did," Shane nodded, pulling out his writing materials. Shane handed me a black notebook along with my study materials. "It has my math notes," he said. "I wrote down the steps for solving complex problems. I remember them all pretty well. You can use it." I accepted it with delight. Shane was the village chief's son, 2 years younger than me. He excelled in math. When I found out he was also planning to take the college entrance exam, I shamelessly asked for his guidance. Without hesitation, he shared his experience with me and even set aside time to tutor me. Before I knew it, we had become study partners, helping each other prepare for the exam. As I left Shane's house, I spotted an unwelcome guest, Ethan. He stood stiffly at my doorstep, wearing a teal shirt that looked oddly familiar. As I walked closer, I suddenly remembered I had given him that shirt long ago. He actually had the audacity to wear it again. When he saw that my hands were empty, his brows furrowed sharply. "Where are the materials?" His entitled tone made my blood boil. "What does that have to do with you?" Ethan's face darkened, his gaze carrying a hint of displeasure. "Stop messing around. Just hand them over." I stared at him coldly, and a ridiculous thought crossed my mind. "Wait, do you seriously think I bought those study materials for you? Where does all that confidence come from? You married Lily. We have nothing to do with each other anymore, so why are you still showing up like this?" Instead of getting angry at my outburst, Ethan smirked as if he had figured something out. "You're obviously jealous of Lily," he shook his head. "Stop being unreasonable. You never studied before. What do you need these materials for? You're just using them as an excuse to get my attention. I know that me not marrying you was a huge blow, but you don't have to go this far." I was so furious I could barely speak. Did Ethan really think I was so pathetic that even after knowing he was married, I'd still throw myself at him? Or was he just so used to my devotion in my past life that he automatically assumed everything I had was meant for him? As I struggled to find the words, Ethan sighed, his tone dripping with pity. "Not just anyone can get into college. No matter how hard you try to get my attention, I won't look at you. Stop wasting. For the sake of our past as husband and wife, I won't hold this against you. Just stay out of my way and don't interfere with Lily's and my happiness." "Who said she's doing this for you?" A crisp, angry voice cut through the air. I turned to see Shane striding toward me, carrying a bag of loquats. He stepped in front of me protectively. "Sophie gave the study materials to me," he said, his voice firm. "We agreed 2 months ago to take the exam together. This has absolutely nothing to do with you." Ethan's face instantly darkened, his gaze flickering between me and Shane, suspicion clear in his eyes. But I didn't care. I lowered my head, trying to hide the sting in my eyes. For some reason, the moment Shane appeared, a wave of emotion rushed through me. An overwhelming sense of grievance, relief, and reassurance. It felt like, for the first time, I wasn't standing alone against Ethan. Gathering my courage, I glared at Ethan and shouted, "I bought the study materials for myself. I'm taking the college entrance exam for me, not for you. Ethan, I stopped liking you a long time ago. Don't show up in front of me again. You disgust me." I took a deep breath and continued, "From now on, you go your way and I'll go mine. Stay out of my life." Ethan's face twisted with rage, his fists clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. The fury in his eyes was terrifying, as if he was ready to kill someone. Instinctively, I stepped closer behind Shane, my heart pounding uncontrollably. In this life and the last, Ethan and I rarely argued, let alone had a shouting match like today, where I outright told him to get lost. "Fine," Ethan gritted his teeth. "Sophie, don't regret this." After he left, I finally stepped out from behind Shane. "Thanks for stepping in just now." Then, noticing he'd come to find me, I asked, "What brings you here? Did you need something?" Instead of answering, Shane kept his gaze fixed on Ethan's retreating figure, watching him for a long time. The whole village says you shamelessly chased after him. But why does it feel like it's the other way around? He shook his head. Rumors are never reliable. With that, he handed me a bag of loquats. My mom picked these from our tree. She asked me to bring some over to you. I accepted them with a grateful smile. Thank you. Shane's mother was truly a kind person, always thinking of me. These loquats were plump and sweet, just right for the season. I thought the matter with Ethan would end there, but the next afternoon, as I passed by the village entrance, I overheard Lily crying. I know Sophie is jealous of me, but that doesn't mean I have to let her spread lies, she sobbed. Ethan and I love each other. She was the one chasing after Ethan all along, she sniffled dramatically. I don't want to argue with her, especially not at her house. But thankfully, Ethan cares about me. He married me and brought me home. He's so gentle and considerate. He truly loves me. Her voice softened, turning dreamy. Ethan has been preparing for the college entrance exam. He plans to go to Beijing. He said once he's settled there, he'll bring me along so I can enjoy a good life. The crowd surrounding her erupted into admiration, and Lily beamed, basking in their envy. I scoffed. A good life? No one could possibly have a good life with someone like Ethan. He looked polished and respectable on the outside, but underneath it all, my silent sacrifices had sustained him. He might dream of a grand romantic future, but who would handle the mundane struggles of daily life? For a long time, I stopped paying attention to them. However, their names still drifted into conversation every now and then. My days were filled with rigorous studying, monotonous yet fulfilling. Under the dim glow of my lamp, my pen flew across the pages, time slipping away unnoticed. Before I knew it, the new year was approaching. My parents busied themselves preparing for the holiday, filling the house with warmth and excitement. That day, as snow fell gently outside, I set down my pen and stepped out for some fresh air, only to run into Ethan and Lily. Ethan, it's almost New Year's. Why hasn't your family sent you any money yet? How are we supposed to celebrate without money? Lily whined, her face full of displeasure. When you married me, you promised I wouldn't suffer, but it's only been 6 months and we can't even afford meat. The rice jar at home is nearly empty. Life was better when I was with the Carter family. You're so useless. She scowled, her expression filled with frustration. Nothing like the blissful bride from 6 months ago. I couldn't hold back my laughter. So once the novelty wore off, the reality of marriage had finally revealed itself. Ethan kept his head down, silently trudging through the snow. Lily was wrapped in a thick cotton coat, yet Ethan wore only a thin outer layer. His exposed hands were red from the cold, his ears covered in frostbite. I faltered for a moment. When had he ever looked this miserable? I recalled that in my past life, at this exact time, we had already been married. Winters were harsh, and Ethan spent his days buried in books, afraid he'd freeze. I had sewn him a warm coat, stocked up on charcoal, hung thick curtains for insulation, and even bought several hot water bottles, making sure he always had warm water while he studied from a distance. Shane called my name, waving me over. Shane's voice pulled me from my thoughts, also drawing Ethan and Lily's attention. Both of them turned to look at me at the same time. Ethan's expression darkened, and he met my gaze briefly before quickly looking away and speeding up his steps. Lily, on the other hand, shot me a glare filled with resentment. As Shane passed them, he frowned slightly and gave Lily an extra glance. What's her problem? Why is she glaring at you? I couldn't help but chuckle. Who knows? Taking the review materials from his hand, I asked, You finished going through them already? That fast. Come inside. It's too cold out here. On the first day of the new year, Ethan suddenly barged into my house, his face pale with panic. He grabbed my wrist, desperate. Sophie, Lily had a miscarriage. Please, you have to save her. I stared at him in disbelief. A miscarriage? What happened? On the way to the hospital, Ethan stammered through the story. That morning, he and Lily had a heated argument. In her anger, Lily tried to run away from home. Ethan chased after her, but in the struggle, she lost her footing and rolled down a slope. She lay on the ground for a long time, unable to get up. When Ethan finally reached her, He saw blood spreading beneath her. It was only then that they realized she had been pregnant. But by the time they got to the hospital, the child was already gone. As soon as Lily saw me, she grabbed a cup and hurled it at me. "You're here to laugh at me, aren't you? Get out. Who let him bring you here? Get out." I sidestepped the cup and looked at her coldly before turning around and walking out. Ethan immediately rushed to console her. "Lily, don't be mad. She just came to check on you. If you don't want to see her, fine, you don't have to." A moment later, Ethan stepped out of the hospital room. When he saw me, he forced out a weak smile and asked, "How's your studying going?" "It's fine," I replied curtly. After a short silence, he continued, "Math is pretty difficult. If you ever need help." "Ethan," I cut him off impatiently. "What do you want?" He lit a cigarette but didn't say anything. I raised an eyebrow in mild surprise. Ethan had never smoked in my past life. Then, looking at his worn-out clothes, I suddenly understood. He was out of money. That was why he was here. Hospital bills cost money. Recovery would cost even more. But Ethan was too focused on his studies to support them both. He hesitated, his lips pressing together as if struggling to speak. Ethan had always been proud. In my past life, after we married, I had sacrificed everything to support his education. I gave him the best possible conditions to succeed, and in return, he worked hard and earned a place at Beijing University. He was well liked by professors and secured a prestigious government job upon graduation. His life had been smooth, free of hardship. But now his marriage with Lily was a mess. They fought constantly. Lily was lazy, selfish, and unwilling to contribute. Ethan was still studying, unable to financially support them both without me shouldering the burden. His life had unraveled. It was karma. I looked at him calmly and said, "Ethan, I'm studying too. I have no money. If you need help, go ask my parents." Ethan's expression stiffened. He nodded slightly, his voice hoarse. "I understand. Thank you." He lifted his head, his eyes filled with complicated emotions as he looked at me. "Sophie, in our past life, you must have had a hard time." After that day, I never helped Ethan again. He kept coming to see me every few days. Sometimes he borrowed books. Other times he just stood outside quietly for a while. As his visits became more frequent, Lily grew suspicious. One day, she secretly followed Ethan and discovered him standing outside my house. Furious, she stormed forward. "Ethan, didn't you say you were?" "I was studying with a friend, this friend Sophie." Hearing the commotion, I stepped outside and found a crowd gathered at my doorstep. Lily held a thin willow branch in her hand, chasing after Ethan as she swung it at him. "You keep coming here. You keep coming here," she shouted, hitting him with each word. "If you think she's so great, why didn't you marry her instead of me?" Ethan ran frantically, dodging her strikes, but in his haste, he tripped and fell right in front of me. He lifted his head, locking eyes with mine, his face full of embarrassment. Lily quickly caught up, glaring at me with pure hatred. "You wretched woman. This is all your fault. You seduced him." She lunged at me, yanking my hair and screaming, "Shameless. You even dare to seduce your own brother-in-law. I'll beat you to death today." "Enough," Ethan roared, yanking Lily off me and shoving her aside. "How long are you going to keep acting like this? Ever since I married you, there hasn't been a single peaceful day." Lily stared at him in disbelief, her eyes filling with sorrow. "You're protecting her, Ethan. You're actually protecting her. You promised you'd love only me. It hasn't even been that long, and now you've changed your heart." Tears streamed down her face as she pointed at her stomach. "Don't forget I carried your child. If it weren't for you, would I have lost the baby?" She scrambled to her feet, her gaze growing sharp and accusing. "You want to abandon me for her, don't you? I'm telling you now that will never happen, not in this lifetime. You owe me a life, Ethan. I won't ever let you go." Her voice rose to a fever pitch. "Tell me, when did you two start sneaking around? What have you done behind my back?" Ethan's patience finally snapped. With a sudden motion, he slapped her across the face. "Enough." Lily staggered backward, stunned. "You were the one who pushed for this marriage." Ethan's voice trembled with anger. "Did I ever treat you badly after we got married? At home, You always ate first while I went hungry. During the winter, I froze so I could buy you coats and scarves. What more do you want? His expression turned bitter. And what did I get in return? Ever since I married you, you've never lifted a finger in the house. You don't cook, you don't clean. I have to do everything myself. I told you I was preparing for the college entrance exam, that I needed time to study, but did you ever offer to help? No. If I'm struggling now, it's because of you. The man before me, his bloodshot eyes burning with fury, overlapped with the Ethan from my past life, the same Ethan who had suffocated me with his own hands. I found myself wondering how quickly his so-called true love had crumbled. He had once hidden his feelings for Lily in his heart for 50 years. Yet within less than a year of marriage, their love had turned into nothing but resentment. Love might seem beautiful, but when it collides with reality, it shatters into pieces, leaving nothing but wreckage. That night, Ethan got drunk, clutching my hand. He sobbed uncontrollably, muttering over and over, "Again, I'm sorry, Sophie. I'm so sorry. It was my fault. Everything was my fault. I made a mistake back then." My parents watched in confusion, their eyes darting between us, but I had no intention of explaining anything. Outside the window, snow began to fall again. It was already the end of January. Soon the winter chill would pass, making way for spring. True spring was finally coming. It seemed like Ethan had truly realized his mistakes. Every time I saw him, his face was clouded with guilt, but I felt nothing. I had told him countless times that I didn't want to see him, yet he stubbornly lingered around me, refusing to leave. It was beginning to irritate me. Shane glanced out the window, frowning in discontent. Doesn't he have studying to do? And now he decides to stand around and wait. I shook my head. Ignore him. Shane said nothing more, propping his chin on his hand, deep in thought. The next day he approached me mysteriously. "Sophie, I found a great place. Ethan will never be able to find you there. Want to go?" He had rented a small courtyard house in the county, planning to use it for studying and so on. On a dark, moonless night, my parents and I quietly moved there. Shane wiped the sweat from his forehead and grinned. "All right, now we won't be disturbed until the college entrance exam is over." We stayed there until the exam ended. Our hard work paid off. After 2 to 3 years of relentless studying, both Shane and I scored well above the passing line for university admission. That evening, my parents prepared a grand feast to celebrate. After a few rounds of drinks, Shane fidgeted before hesitantly asking, "Sophie, which city do you want to go to?" I thought for a moment. Somewhere in the south. I've always wanted to climb Yellow Mountain. When I get into university, I'll finally go see it. "I'll go with you," he said without hesitation. Under the warm glow of the lantern, his face was flushed, his smile carrying a trace of sweetness. His eyes sparkled as he gazed at me, unwavering and intense. It was only then that I realized Shane felt something more for me. My heart skipped a beat. Panicked, I stood up hastily. I should get going. When we returned to our village for the celebration banquet, Ethan was already gone. He had left behind a letter and a jade pendant for me. I picked up the pendant, running my fingers over its smooth surface. It was the Liu family heirloom. In my past life, when I found out about its existence, I had begged Ethan for it countless times, but he never gave it to me. Now in this life he handed it over so easily, but I no longer needed it. After a moment of thought, I didn't even bother to open the letter. I tossed both items into the corner of a cabinet, forgotten. Shane and I went to university in the South together. During the National Day holiday, he accompanied me to climb Yellow Mountain. When we reached the peak, he asked in confusion, "Sophie, why did you insist on climbing Yellow Mountain?" I gazed at the sunrise emerging from the horizon and smiled at him. As a dream of mine, or maybe an obsession, the mountain I had once longed to climb with Ethan. Shane had climbed with me instead. Leaving Ethan behind, I finally realized how beautiful life could be. I didn't have to be a housewife. I didn't have to bear child after child. I didn't have to spend my days serving Ethan and taking care of children. I didn't have to devote myself to housework. Life held endless possibilities. Sophie, your wonderful life is just beginning. For years passed in the blink of an eye. 2 years after graduation, Shane and I got married. When we returned home for the new year, I saw a familiar figure standing at the entrance. "Ethan," I murmured hesitantly, blinking in disbelief. He stood at the gate just like he had 6 or 7 years ago, silent and unmoving. But he had changed beyond recognition. His matted hair covered his eyes, his unkempt beard tangled and thick, his skin was dark and sallow, his eye sockets sunken, and his clothes were tattered. He looked like a beggar. Suddenly, Ethan grinned, revealing yellow teeth. "Sophie," he croaked. It really was Ethan. I gasped, covering my mouth in shock. At that moment, my mother stepped out from the courtyard. Shane immediately stepped in front of me, shielding me. "Don't bother with him, he's lost his mind." From my mother, I learned what had happened to Ethan. After his downfall, he got involved in a crime. The victim turned out to be someone with status and power. Enraged, that person had Ethan's hand broken and sent him to prison for 2 years. When Ethan was released, he still believed he could make a comeback, but with a crippled hand, he could no longer prepare for exams or do manual labor. Having a criminal record made it nearly impossible for him to find work. Yet his arrogance wouldn't allow him to take low-paying jobs like being a waiter or a laborer. As time passed, he drove himself into madness. The once proud golden boy had fallen into the mud, unable to accept the drastic change in his fate. Humans are truly strange creatures. When I was first reborn, I hated Ethan with every fiber of my being. But now, seeing him in this pitiful state, I felt an odd sense of sorrow. With a quiet sigh, I reached into my pocket, pulled out 200 yuan and handed it to him. "Buy yourself something to eat." Ethan stared blankly at the money for a long time before slowly shaking his head. Lifting his gaze, he looked at me with a complex expression. "Sophie, if we could do it all over again, would you forgive me?" I didn't answer. After a long silence, he seemed to understand. He didn't take my money. Instead, he turned and walked away, step by step, fading into the distance. That very night, he drowned himself in the river, muttering over and over, "One more chance, just one more chance."